Hey Terraria fans, welcome back to another World Tour video. The series where I like to highlight some of the builds, the materials, and some of the techniques that I've used in, well, some of the designs I've been doing over the last few weeks. Now in this one, I'm going to be highlighting two of my custom NPC homes that you may or may not have already seen, as they're already up on the channel, and they're actually also a YouTube short, which is a thing I'm, doing now. So go check those out if you haven't already. So anyways, I'll be showing you a build that I made for the guide as well as the merchant. Now, if you guys want to catch me making any of these builds live or in person, you can do so on Twitch. Link is down below, and I'm basically on every day of the week except for Wednesdays and Sundays. Additionally, if you're liking any of the content on the channel, don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, or the little dinner bell thingy so you can know when the next video hits the old YouTube universe. And with those plugs out of the way, let's get to the build, shall we? Alright, so here we are at our first build. This is going to be our custom home for the guide NPC. Now, in this build, we're not using anything too special, as you can see. A lot of basic blocks, nothing really stands out as being particularly unique. However, I do encourage you to pause the video here if you're wanting to look at any of the materials more closely. Something I don't use too often here is some bamboo. I use some bamboo wall and some large bamboo wall, but again, these are nothing that are too uncommon or too spectacular in and of themselves, and you'll see the design's pretty basic, guys. It's a small little build, so this should be a fairly quick walkthrough. Again, the materials are fairly basic, but we did use a lot of them. Alright, so with those materials out of the way, let's get to the build. Alright folks, so here we are. This is the custom house I designed for the guide. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of detail, but a lot of that just comes from using a lot of different textures and walls. So one thing that's, I guess, sort of unique to this build is going to be our foundation. I usually use the foundation with a kind of a very similar pattern. I did keep the false foundation basic. I make this pretty often, and there's nothing super special about it in and of itself. It's just some white painted mudstone wall and then some fences just to add a little bit of light through. What we did here is we used some slab and we used some brick and some different stones here just to make a lot of different layers and textures. And then we kind of did the same thing with the floor. Now the floor is just some wood, and then we have some, I believe this is ebon wood, also painted brown, and just looks really nice. I think the floor really sets the foundation for the build quite literally, but also for the way it's going to look. Now, part I really actually like is this room here. I know it's not a lot, and it's got the stairs, which are, again, something I make fairly often. By the way, there's actually a tutorial on how to make these stairs if you want to check that out on the channel. But beyond that is that there's a lot of texture, and what I decided to do was kind of make it look like it was a bit broken down. So we alternated some different walls, and so we used some plank wall. I believe this is painted gray. We used some, I believe this is spooky wood wall here, as well as some normal wall, and then some mahogany wall painted brown. And it just kind of adds a lot of detail, and I really like the way it turned out. It's something that I'm going to probably play with a bit more in a lot of my builds, especially if they're feeling a little bit more run down. Now, moving to the top floor, you'll notice the same sort of design. We wanted to keep it a little bit cleaner, so I went with some slab wall as well as some boreal wall as well. This kind of just gives it a more, I guess, put together feel than downstairs, which is kind of more crumbling. So this feels like it's a bit more structured and supported and maintained, and it kind of has the right feel for me. I do like this sort of support beam in the middle. This is going to be some spooky wood that is actuated and painted brown. Again, I wish it wasn't quite as dark as it is. As you can see here, it kind of blends in a bit better, but I think it's the right fit for what we were doing. I do kind of wish I had made the top area here just supporting the roof maybe a bit wider, a bit thicker, more structurally sound, or adding some wood along it as well, but overall it looks pretty good. Now over here on the left side, we have what might be my most favorite little feature, and that is this rope with a little bit of a oil lantern hanging off. I don't know why I like it so much. It just feels really quaint, like a little place to sit down and, well, enjoy your time. Again, this is super simple. This is kind of our little fence trick where we do a wider fence. So in this case, we're doing a mahogany fence with the boreal fence inside as an insert. And that kind of makes it look a little bit thicker and a little bit broader. And then here we have just a basic rope that's stretched across and connecting in with a single block. Now, I'd love to actuate this or have the lantern hang from it on its own, but you can't actually do that in Terraria, so this was the compromise. Now, this could have been metal, which I actually thought of doing painted black, but I decided to end up sticking with the wood, and I think it looks pretty good. Now, the next feature I'm going to highlight is going to be the roof, which looks pretty good. I think overall, it's a simple design. We're using some of our Dynasty shingles here painted. I believe this is a deep orange, but I could be wrong. It might be orange. and then we just have a platform that we put down, and then we have a little bit of a piece of fence. I just like the way it looks. It feels good, and it's not so complicated to make. It really didn't take me a long time to put together. Now, I know some people are going to ask about why I didn't hammer this down. I just wanted to keep the design, and I think that little bit of texturing looks pretty good. And the next thing is the chimney here. As you can see, we put some basic blocks down, let a chimney sit on top, and then put little walls on either side. And I actually think this has a pretty good illusion of feeling a bit wider and a bit more 3D than it otherwise might look. Another little thing to look at from a detail perspective, folks, is this a little bit of wood sticking out. This is our mahogany wall painted brown. It's just a nice little feature to add some thickness into your designs, and it looks really good protruding out of areas like the roofs or like awnings down here. Again, when I thought of the guide, I really wanted to have things like the map and some, explorer's mining gear, a pickaxe in a item frame, just some stuff that made it feel right for the design. But I also didn't want to be the most beautiful house out there. I thought it should be a little run down, a little used, well-worn, that kind of thing. So again, guys, that is going to cover our build for the guide. I do hope you like it. And again, if you want to see this as a speed build, there is a video already up on the channel, which I recommend you go check out. And with that, let's move on to our second build. Alright, so for the second build, we are checking out our custom home for the merchant. Now, this one was a really fun one to make. There's a couple of features I'm not super happy with, and as you know, guys, I don't actually change anything once I start. But here we have all of the materials. Now, we do have a couple of unique materials here that I don't often use, and that includes our snow brick wall, which, again, while a basic material, it's just one that I don't use very often. I also use some silver brick wall, some demonite brick wall, and some tin brick wall. So these are all materials that I use very infrequently. Now, the Kremstone brick wall is something I am using a lot more these days, so it's not quite something I would say is unique, but it's not something I use all the time. Beyond that, I also use some silly green balloon, which is something I use, again, somewhat infrequently, but you can use any of the, silly balloon blocks if you'd like. I think I just chose green because of the coloring. And then there we also use some deep blue sky paint and some black paint as well. And we kept the rest of the build fairly, well, I wouldn't say basic, but we kept it kind of neat and tidy. And I do like the way it turned out. But again, the most unique pieces here, guys, are going to be the tin brick, the demonite brick, and the silver brick wall. I just really don't ever use them. And then the snow brick wall is something that I kind of played around with, but could be replaced with any, brick wall that you want. Anyways, that's the highlight of all of the materials. I do encourage you to pause the video here and take a closer look if you're wondering about anything. Again, if you have any questions or concerns about any of the materials I'm using, feel free to leave me a comment down below and I will get back to you. All right, so with that, let's get to the build. Alright folks, so here we are at the custom house for the merchant. Now, as you can tell, I went for a very different design than what we had with our guide. Some of the really cool features for me here are just the fact that I made it look very much like a shop entrance. We have a little place to sit down, you can have some tea, all that fun stuff, but here's the main piece of the room, basically where you can buy some art, where he's selling a bunch of potions and, herbs and whatnot. And I just like the way it turned out. The banners were something I put in kind of last minute. It turned out pretty good overall, and I'm actually pretty satisfied with this. But here's the part where you can see we used that brick wall from the snow biome, so the snow brick wall. This is now painted white, and then we use some of that, I believe this is the Kremstone brick wall, also painted white, and it just has a really cool design. It kind of like frames this middle part, and it's something that I actually really like the way it turned out. The rest of the house is pretty basic on the first floor. We're using a combination of Evanstone brick and some palladium, and if you look here, we'll see that we've actually missed a spot. Now, for the frame of the house, I decided to go with a very classic and very standard design. That is going to be our Evanstone brick and our palladium columns in between, and we just painted this gray, and it's just the kind of standard castle look, I suppose, but it works well with this build. Now, for the wood framing of the house, we went with some mahogany here, and then I think we went with some shade wood in the vertical parts, and it actually looks pretty good. I also went with some stone accent slab here just in the corners to give it a bit more sturdiness to the design. For the background wall, we decided to go with a lot of our boreal wall and then go with some of the white painted dynasty here. It just kind of looks nice and clean, which is kind of what I would think of when I walk into a merchant shop. Now, the other kind of element here is where we used our tin brick wall and some of these other unique walls right in here where the staircase is. We also used the silver, I believe this is the silver, or maybe this is the demonite wall here for the stairs. We did this on the second floor as well, and then we used one of them for the curtains. So it's a pretty cool little design. I kind of like the way this looked. And now the other thing I really like on this second floor is going to be this room right here. It just shows all the different products here on a bunch of item frames. It's nothing too special, very easy to make, but adds a lot of color, a lot of just interest to the build itself. Now, there's nothing really special about this third room. However, the one thing I will point out is really this piece right here. The separation between the roof here and the sort of, I guess, top of the ceiling. I just really like the way this turned out. I don't know what it is about it, but I think it's just the insert of, I believe this is a wood shelf, if I'm not mistaken, painted gray. It just, I don't know, it just adds a lot of detail and a lot of kind of just depth to the build. And I do really like the way this looked out. It's something I've been kind of playing with in a few of my other builds as well. And it's something that I think you should give a test run on some of your designs, because I don't know, I just find it really works really well for roofing. And speaking of that roofing, we kind of went with a very different roof here. I don't necessarily love this roof. It's one that I kind of played with a bit, and again, the design's not too bad. For the actual sort of shingles here, we decided to go with the Dynasty shingle block itself, but then the actual sort of insert here is going to be our Kremstone wall, and this is painted, I believe this is a deep sky blue, and it looks good. Again, it's just a bit of a different design, and I think I probably could have gone with something a bit different, but overall, I do like the way it looks. Now, you'll also notice, unlike in the first build that I showed, is that we didn't go with a false foundation. I actually like the way the design is on this one. We did go with this sort of pattern floor where we do wood and then palm wood and mix it up with different woods painted brown. It's just a nice little look. We didn't carry this design up the other floors, which, again, as you can see, it would have been nice to have a little bit more texture here. We kind of kept it very basic, and it kind of makes the build feel a little bit flat, so it's something I would recommend you try to do, or something I would have changed myself, but overall I'm not too displeased with how this looks. But let me know what you guys think of these builds, which one's your favorite, what would you change, and is there anything that you think I'm missing? Alright folks, so that'll do it for us. I hope you guys enjoyed these builds as much as I did. I'm going to be posting a few more of these world tour videos just to give a couple of highlights, some designs, and some techniques that I'm using. If you have any questions about them, guys, of course, feel free to leave a comment down below. And in the meantime, don't forget to check out some of the other content that we have on the channel. So that'll do it for me. As always, thumbs if you liked it, thumbs if you loved it. We will see you in the next one.